Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today's video podcast. We're going to chat a little bit about several different topics, but the first one is one of my favorite things to do, and I think it's probably one of most people's favorite things to do, is that's waste time on your phone. And joining me today to talk a bit about how that can save you sometimes up to $200 is our editor from the site of FareCompare, Ann McDermott. Hey, Ann.
And in case you don't know about wasting time on your phone, be sure and check out the article. We have links to the article. It's easy to find, and it has a lovely cat picture, a cat video.
Yes, we'd never disallow any sort of pet video on the site or any sort of pet pictures. And I think, the theme of this story is really about connecting flights and how much different in price, especially if you live in a larger metropolitan city where you have choices between nonstops and connecting flights. The big price differential for convenience that you're paying nowadays. The airlines are really, looking at that convenience as something they know that they can upsell. Remember, if you're $1 more, and in this case $200 more in many cases, you're on page 30 or 40 of shopping results. So that means somebody actually has to go to their shopping results and actually filter by nonstops, which a lot of people do, by the way.
And I think, when we talk about wasting time on your phone, we're talking about the time you spend in the airport as you're, waiting for, you've just arrived on one flight and you're going off on to another, the connecting flight. And yes, it's the sheer inconvenience of it, as opposed to a nonstop. But you really can't save. It depends on the route, but some of the savings can be, pretty incredible.
Yeah, so I just got off of a nonstop from Edinburgh, where I was heading from Dallas to Edinburgh. Got off at JFK, and when I was at the airport wasting time on my phone, I was trying to download some of the shows that I'd missed while I was gone onto my phone over the nice AT&T Wi-Fi, using my TiVo box to download to my phone. And I was really cranky because I cut off the last 20 minutes because I had to jump on my flight because I didn't have enough time to waste. So I did save quite a bit of money, by the way, by taking that particular route.
But we've got a couple of examples in the article. For example, and of course flight prices change all the time. So you may not find this, you may not find it exactly. But for example, there's a Portland, Oregon to Newark route. And if you take the nonstop on this one flight we found, it was almost $900, $887. And if you have one stop, just add a stop to it, $384. So you're saving, well, I don't know math, but I believe that's like around $500.
Yeah, about not quite 3 times more in savings there. So there's examples there from New York to San Diego, and also even some international ones like London to Dubrovnik. It's a huge difference, and clearly airlines know that some people have a higher threshold for convenience. They'll just pay more for convenience, and that's what sets the market pricing. So one of the things that you really have to do is compare prices, look at connecting flights, fly on those cheapest days, typically Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you'll always be able to find a deal. I know a lot of people say they can never find a deal. I find deals every day, all day. I do radio shows across the country. There's always deals to be had, so use technology to your advantage, and sometimes just waste some time on your phone on that next connection.
And one more quick thing about this. Sometimes the wait time for connecting flights can be, kind of outrageous, particularly if you're flying overseas. And I found a couple where you save a lot of money, but you might have a 12-hour layover, and a lot of people just aren't going to do that. However, I did hear from one of FareCompare fans, and she was telling me about how she uses that 12 hours to walk around the airport, and then she rents one of those little mini pod, like, tiny little
those little micro hotels, yeah.
Micro hotels, yeah, which costs very little money, gives her a great sleep, and you know what it's like to fly like 14, 15, 18 hours. This is not a bad thing to do, and it does save you money.
Yeah, no, I think there's so many different ways to fly and to save money and to have an experience, especially on some of these longer flights. You know how you cut them into pieces in some cases, and get some sleep so that you're refreshed for the next day. It's very complicated, and you know we talk about these on the articles on our site all the time. So come take a quick visit, and you know, as Ann said, there's a really cool picture of a little kitty cat there. So at least you'll get to see that part.
And we have another topic which I know is dear to your heart. You wrote about crazy dollar days, and that's where we are right now, right?
Yeah, I love the fact that we have airlines like Spirit Airlines and Frontier now doing some crazy stuff, and Allegiant, and even some you know, international airlines like Norwegian, just throwing out these crazy prices, $25 one way. You know, I think we have an example from Cincinnati to Orlando. We've got these $49 one way sales, and by the way, you know. They have to disclose taxes now when they say $49 one way, so that's likely more closer to $39 one way in some
Yeah.
cases. You know, it's just really unbelievable pricing in some cases, and you know, these clearly, every seat on the plane isn't going to be at this price. Usually, it's only a handful of seats on the plane, but you know, when you're flying for $180 each way from New York to Sweden, that's a ridiculously cheap airfare.
Well, or how about $200 from Boston to Paris? Oh my! Or should I say, ooh la la?
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing too, I was talking to some folks about these crazy fares across the nation, and a lot of them were saying, well, heck, I'll just, you know, take a domestic ticket to wherever these cities where they're having these crazy deals, and it looks like I could save a ton of money, you know, to get to Boston, maybe $250, and then you're paying, you know, $500 for you know, your ticket to Paris, and now you're looking at $700 versus $1,400.
And the beauty of that is Boston is listed as one of your cheapest cities domestically. So
Yeah, no, so it's really
win-win.
interesting. So hey, you know what? Airlines keep throwing them out there. You know, we only have four airlines to control 80% of traffic now. So the more we can have some of these crazy deals being tossed out there and being matched, all the better, as far as I'm concerned.
And please enjoy it. Please fly, because come mid-November, uh-uh.
Yeah, things will change, especially for the holiday season. So don't look for these on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and the Sunday
No.
after, or the bracketing days around you know, Christmas and New Year's. So just be aware that I know a lot of people, they see the $25 one way and assume that they can go, you know, tomorrow or when they want to go. These are very, very specific fares on very specific days. So have some flexibility and you know, head out there and do some traveling.
Well, and now a lot of times people, especially people that are kind of new to FareCompare, they're not really sure about how to plan a trip. I mean, it can be a little intimidating. So
Sure,
you
my
got
wife
any
just
tips
intimidated.
for
Yeah,
people like that?
yeah, sure. My wife just intimidated me because we're negotiating what we're going to do over Thanksgiving, since I actually am holding on to some tickets and trying to convince her that those are the right flights. So, you know, here's sort of the way I like to plan trips, and I know a lot of people do it this way too. The first thing is you want to just kick some tires on some destinations. You know, hit
Mm,
the internet, do some research. And then what you do is sort of cross-check that research with some of the cheaper destinations. We have some great deals lists, so you can sort of cross-check, hey, where are the deals right now? And then you can do some research about what to do there. We're about to launch a new phone app here very soon on FareCompare in the next few weeks that'll do some of this as well. So, you know, that's the first part. And then, you know, in my case, you know, airfare tends to lead, so you have basically two choices. You can let the location lead wherever you're trying to stay, whether it's a resort or something. You
mhm.
absolutely want to go there. Like, let's say it's a Disney trip, and you only can go during spring break, for example. So
Ugh.
that sort of leads. That's certainly going to make it more complicated. But even then, like a couple of years ago, we were looking at going to Orlando. It was you know, Saturday to Saturday trip was like $900 round trip for a coach ticket from Dallas to Orlando, but we ended up going Tuesday to Saturday, and it was only $300 round trip.
Another thought is try to think of a cheaper alternative that to you seems almost, if not just as good. You know, like instead of Disney World, Maybe try Disneyland,
Disneyland.
yeah,
Yeah,
or Disney
we
Paris or
yeah,
whatever.
or Disney, Tokyo or Hong Kong. So in some cases, it makes a little bit of difference, but I think that's one of them. And a huge thing that's really changed for me in the last few years is transportation to and from the actual airport. I used to always park my car at the airport, go in remote parking. In some cases, if it was a longer trip, if it was a shorter trip, parking closer. And I'm
Mhm.
almost exclusively using, one of the services like Uber or Lyft to actually get to the airport. It's much cheaper, it turns out. Sometimes I'll get a family member to take me. They're kind of lazy sometimes. Especially if it's a business trip or something. But yeah, so that's changed quite a bit the way it's a bit of a pain too, because when I land in New York, in order to get the Uber driver, you have to walk across 3 lanes of traffic because they don't want them actually near the taxis don't want them near the airport, and so it's a little more complicated. But that certainly has changed things for a lot of people.
Well, also another thing, and forgive me, my earpiece keeps falling out, but I'm sure that that's providing a little extra entertainment value for our viewers.
Mhm.
But one thing, have you ever, this has happened to me, you go to that long-term parking lot to pick up your car, and goodness gracious, it doesn't start.
Or it has a flat tire.
Yes,
Been there, done that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's extremely painful, and so that clearly I don't have to worry about that as much as if I've got an Uber driver of some sort. So, and I think that all you need is one of those when your battery's dead or you have a flat tire and or your car has a dent in it. For example, that's happened in the past in those parking lots.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, so I think that's changed a bit, and another thing too is once you decide and you have pretty much your air and your hotel sort of locked up, my family tends to, unless we have some very specific things we want to go to, like for example, we just got back from Paris. We wanted to take several different tours. One of them was a tour of the Louvre using Da Vinci Code as the theme, and we'd used this company before. But we tend to do the activities once we get there and try a few different things unless we really are dead set on doing something. And then you got to make sure that everything is sorted out, especially if you're flying international. Having pre-check and global entry are great. Even if you haven't done it, you have no idea what it's like to come back to immigration and wait in line 2.5 hours when they dump off about 7 or 8 wide-body jets into immigration and customs simultaneously. So get your pre-check or your global entry. Global entry is just $15 more for 5 years, average $20 a year. Get your credit card sorted out. Also, make sure your data plan for your phone has been set. You don't want to get thousands of dollars in roaming charges. Make sure your
yeah.
passport's up to date. Also, take a picture of all your important documents. Put them up in the cloud. I've had at least 4 or 5 flight attendants tell me they've lost their passports and were grateful that they actually took a photo of them and sent them up to the cloud so they could access them as they try to sort out the issue with their passports. So.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but talk to your bank about your credit card so your
Yeah,
bank
sure.
doesn't start harassing you and saying, hey, somebody's in Europe spending a
Yeah,
lot of your money.
yeah, I have Citibank, and they have a little button you can press and say I'm going to be out of the country, and Wells Fargo has a little button where you can tell them you're going to be out of country and what countries you're going to be in. You can do it very quickly from your phone, so you don't have to wait an hour on the actual
Yeah.
a phone call. So very easy to do. I know it's for me. I've been doing it so many times, and so often sometimes I forget that a lot of that knowledge was hard gained over many parts of trial and error, traveling and different things. I personally too don't like to check bags. I've gotten my family now where they only do carry-ons, not because you don't get a free carry-on when you fly internationally. It's just really liberating to be somewhere and not have to have these huge bags, especially if you're sort of traveling around and touring the countryside and traveling on
Yeah.
trains and maybe low-cost airlines like we've done in Europe in the past. So certainly those are the things that I would do initially and have fun with it. I mean, I think one of the funnest parts of travel is sort of the precursor to it, researching and
Yeah.
sort of getting everything sorted out. Now, lots of things can go wrong. Come to the site. We're going to try to mitigate that as best as we can.
We will. We will. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks.